Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and this video is intended to be a video response to my good friend TJ Pyramid Joe on YouTube. I'll be linking his channel as well as his wife's channel. Tina, how are you doing? In the description below, so you can check them out. They're always talking about just great movies from all genres, and in this particular case, Joe has asked a couple of questions that I wanted to kind of take part in answering, and I found these questions, I've heard questions like these raised in the past, and I always find them somewhat hard to really gauge, although I think I have a couple of answers that I kind of want to put forth. So the first video that Joe had uploaded on his channel, TJ Pyramid, was to ask, in like 40 years' time, what films exist currently that you think people are going to still be talking about and watching, are still going to be remaining in the collective consciousness of filmgoers and entertainment seekers and stuff like that in the future? And for me, the first thing that came to mind was Zack Snyder's Watchmen. This movie is just a modern masterpiece as far as I'm concerned, and I think it will stand the test of time, and the more time passes, the more people are going to just adore it and love it and be compelled by it. And again, modern masterpiece is the phrase that I don't throw around, wantonly describing this film. This is how I really feel this film can be appraised. I think it is a modern day classic, a masterpiece, and of film invention, and just taking us to new, heights as far as film going goes. Other movies that I thought of were like the, newer Planet of the Apes films, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and everything like that. I think these are new chapters in classic, tried and true, sort of fandoms. And I think because those original, Planet of the Apes films have lasted and stood the test of time, I think this new blood, this new flavor, it's not so much reinventing the wheel as carrying on with the tradition, but in new ways. And I think they, at least with Rise, I was really wowed by it. I thought they totally did something unique while also playing on something we've seen before at the same time. So for the sequel that is yet to be coming out as of the time of this recording, I think we're going to see wondrous things in the Planet of the Apes universe. I think we're going to still be talking about these movies in the future. I would say the same would be another large, sort of franchise that came to mind was the X-Men films. I mean, it all began with Bryan Singer's first two X-Men films. The third one's usually panned by fans and critics alike, but I did enjoy it for what it was. And then you come around to a film like X-Men First Class, which in a similar means, very much more close in the stretch of time than with the Planet of the Apes films, reinvented the wheel in new and interesting ways while also still adhering to things we've seen before in the X-Men universe on film. And I think, as we move on to the further movies, we can only speculate, but I think it would be fair to say if Bryan Singer, who is rehelming the X-Men franchise, is able to adhere to the quality, the product that he put out with those first two X-Men movies, I think we're still going to be seeing X-Men movies for a long time to come, and it's still going to remain in the collective consciousness of, as I say, entertainment viewers and such like that. Now, in Joe's most recent video, he asked, sort of as a spin-off to this, what actors or actresses that are around nowadays do you think we will also be following in, say 40 years' time in the future? And this was the tougher question for me because I'm not very good with, I don't have a lot of money and I can't get out to a lot of the modern movies that are coming out and stuff like that. So I find myself really unfamiliar with a lot of today's sort of acting set as far as the younger actors and stuff like that. The names that came to mind, the very first name that came to mind for me was Josh Brolin, as being somebody who just has tremendous ability from what little I've seen of his work. Most recently I saw Men in Black 3, and whether you can take or leave that movie, you have to admit what he did, his transformation into a very Tommy Lee Jones-like character, just astounded me. He looks like he can really handle drama. He has a versatile sort of, he can be stone-faced, he can be emotional. And that's what you want in an actor. Some other names that came to mind, they recently passed away as of the time of this recording, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think we will definitely be still talking about his catalog of films in 40 years' time in the future. Actresses like Anne Hathaway, I think, still have a lot to do. I say actresses, but her name was actually the only actress I came up with at the moment, because as I say, I'm just not really familiar with the current set of actors in Hollywood, the younger ones in any case. And I kind of wanted to angle this from a younger perspective, but to get into a somewhat older perspective, I have to agree with, Joe's bringing up like Morgan Freeman and Jeff Bridges. These are just classical actors in a modern day sense. I think that's my biggest sort of confliction with this whole topic is I don't see a lot of the younger actors today in a similar way to how you would see, like the Humphrey Bogarts and all these classic actors and that kind of thing. It's hard to relate that because it's such a different sort of experience. It's a different animal than it was back in the 30s and 40s today than it was back then. So it's really hard for me to kind of gauge. But some other actors, as far as modern day, I'd say Lawrence Fishburne is definitely a top contender as being somebody who is, he's already done so much. And I think we're going to see more from him. Chris Hemsworth, as far as a younger actor in, like, the Thor movies and stuff like that, I think he can still do quite a bit. Mel Gibson, who has been around for a while, I think he's still got some mileage left in him. Jim Carrey in his way. And things like that. What this actually did inspire in me was a question I want to pose back to anyone who watches this video, as well as my good friend Joe. As far as, actors today that you feel deserve more attention and aren't getting it. What actors or actresses do you see in film and are constantly wowed by, but aren't seeing a lot of recognition being put forth toward? Or people might, they recognize the face, but they don't necessarily recognize the name. And the two that came to mind to me immediately, because of all the, ever since the Super Bowl, there's a lot of new preview footage and trailers coming out for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Two names of actors in that movie are right at the top of the list for me: Paul Giamatti and Chris Cooper. These are two guys, time and time again, I'm just astounded by their performances. I love every minute of it. They don't chew the scenery, they are subtle, yet sometimes explosive with emotion. And the range is just absolutely versatile. And these are actors that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with as far as, they're not like A-listers in that you're going to see them on the front of tabloids in the supermarket or magazines and that kind of thing. And I think these are perfect sort of actors to pitch as ones I'd love to see in more mainstream capacity. Of course, they have to follow whatever it is that interests them as far as performances go and stuff like that. But, yeah, so that's basically the best I can kind of do off the top of my head to answer these questions. I think they're very interesting questions, and as always, I'd love to hear from anyone watching this video in the comments below. Realize I can't respond to them, but I do love reading people's thoughts and opinions. What actors, actresses, movies or otherwise, do you think are still going to be in the collective consciousness in the future, in say 40 years time, that we're still going to be watching, still talking about, and have such relevance that they're still in the mainstream consciousness? And as well, I pose my own question once again to say, what actors or actresses do you think are around today that aren't getting the recognition maybe they're deserved of, or aren't as familiar to people as they should be, that you'd like to see get more recognition? So otherwise, it's going to be it for me on this. I hope you, Joe, are doing well, as well as your wife, Tina, and anyone else who's watching this video. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.